going to lift it over. So you can get away straight away, eliminate players.
Start
You know
with
where
the
the ball is.
Hello and welcome to Hockey Zone. During the week we caught up with one of our best umpires, Dino Willox. Commonly known to everybody as Dino because she used to have purple spiky hair. The first question we asked Dino was, how did you get into hockey?
I actually, interestingly enough, when I was younger, used to do Highland dancing, and I got up to age 16 and got to the Supreme Award, which is the highest you could do with Highland dancing, and I couldn't do my teacher's exam until I was 17, so I had a year where I had to wait to do something. So I started playing hockey just because my family don't do anything with sport. They have no understanding of why I'm involved in sport at all. But I started playing hockey and just really liked it. So I ditched the Highland dancing and started playing hockey. At our school, we played hockey, netball, rounders, cricket, basketball, you name it. There was sport there, so any sport you wanted to play, you could play. I grew up in Cheltenham, and there seemed to be a lot of hockey pitches around and a lot of people playing hockey, so I just started.
And then we asked, from playing, what led you to umpiring?
I didn't start umpiring until I'd moved to Cardiff to go to university. I must have been 24. 24 was when I actually started umpiring. I took my level 1 badge in Wales when I was 25. And now I'm 40, so that's some years of umpiring. I used to be quite a physical player, and I used to quite often get into some heated debates with umpires about things. So I wasn't the best friend of the umpires, and at one point one of the umpires who I quite often had debates with said, if you think you can do better, why don't you try it? So I said, okay, I'll try it.
I was also interested to know, when did umpiring become more important than playing?
I think, again, when I was in Wales, so I was playing for Whitchurch Saints Hockey Club. I was actually chair of the club as well, and I was managing the men's first team who were in the English National League, which pretty much took up most of my time. And there was a point at which that balance between playing, umpiring, managing kind of tipped, and I had to make a decision about what I wanted to do. I just enjoyed umpiring a little bit more because I was responsible for my own destiny. You know, instead of having to rely on, 16 other people being in the right place at the right time and making sure that they're there at the right place at the right time and that they've got the energy drinks that they need and all that kind of stuff, I could just make sure that I was there. So I think it was a little bit of selfishness and a little bit of getting the balance right and saying, okay, I need to look after myself a little bit. I came to Australia in January 2011. I had brilliant timing because when I was due to leave, I was actually watching on the TV the floods in Brisbane and watching pontoons going down that river and boats and all sorts, and I was watching it thinking, I'm leaving in a couple of days and I'm not sure what I'm going to arrive to, and the airport was flooded and nobody could get anywhere, and I was a little uncertain as to whether I would be arriving to anything. As it transpires, by the time I arrived, everyone had cleared everything up, so thanks very much, Brisbane. I came to Australia actually to work at the University of Queensland. I got a job working in the Faculty of Business, Economics and Law. So I was working at Strathclyde Business School in Glasgow. I was the faculty manager there and loved it. But I basically got offered a job over here that I couldn't refuse. So I came over for the job. Happened to know that Jan Hatfield was here, which was not going to be at all bad for my umpiring. So I got regular top-level coaching when I got here, and that I have definitely improved since being in Brisbane, and that I have to take my hat off to Jan for the dedication that she puts in to be there every week, coaching people and making them better.
As one of their top umpires, we were interested to know what makes a great umpire.
I think it really does depend on the individual. You have to have basic skills. You have to know the rules. You have to know how to manage your stress levels, manage other people, all that kind of stuff. But everyone's got their own different style, and everyone's got a different way of getting better. I deal well in coaching terms with being spoken to directly, so I get on very well with Jan. But I also think that I was very underconfident, and so I would be hesitant when I was umpiring, and Jan gave me the confidence to just say, no, you're okay, just go and do it. So it depends on what an individual needs in terms of their own development. But you've got to get the basics right first. You've got to know the rules, you've got to have rapport with the players, you've got to understand what the players are trying to do, you've got to understand the game and be able to facilitate the game. It's not about you being an umpire and it's not about the players being players, it's about the game. So how best you can facilitate that to be the best game it possibly can be, you just need to work out how you can do that. I think it's important to know what the backstory is to the game that you're going on to, so you know what you need to be prepared for and what things might happen. I always remember when I started umpiring in Wales, Steve Graham was a mentor for me, and he said, whatever you do whenever you umpire, you should always do the same thing, because then if you get stressed or you get nervous or something happens that's out of the ordinary, you'll revert to the way that you always umpire. So I always umpire with respect, I always umpire by communicating, I hope. I always umpire by trying to be as uninvolved in the game as possible, but facilitating the game to be better. So I try and do that every game. Now, if you've got a grudge match, you need to know that before you go on the pitch, because you need to just be cognizant that something might happen that you're not expecting, and you need to make sure that you're as sharp as you can be. And you have to then just respond to the game. With regard to talking with players, I think the issue is always that you talk with players and you talk respectfully with each other. So when you ask about, okay, in soccer, say, you know, there's a separation between the players and the umpire, and there could be some friction there. For me, I think the fundamental issue is respect. You have to have mutual respect, you have to trust each other. I cannot play anywhere near as well as the players on the pitch, and I respect them for that. And I hope that they respect me for my ability to umpire. So if I'm talking to them, I will talk to them respectfully, knowing that they're better at what they do than I am, and hopefully trusting that they think that I'm a little bit better at what I do than they would be if they were umpiring. But ultimately, you have to communicate. Again, it's to facilitate the game and make sure that the game is as good as it possibly can be. And to do that, you can't do that in silence. An umpire is not perfect, but neither is anybody else. And I think that I have, in my time, come across umpires who do believe they are perfect, and that just doesn't work. Everyone has to have humility, you have to respect each other, you have to recognise that you can always be better. And you always make mistakes. You just have to learn from them.
Umpiring is a very competitive business, and we'd like to know from Dino how you go about getting call up to the highest level.
International appointments are done by an international appointment committee. So I'm involved obviously with the European hockey setup as well. So the EHF, European Hockey Federation, appoints European umpires to European competitions. FIH appoint international umpires to FIH level competitions. And those appointments are done by committee. So you don't have, a certain allotted number of umpires per country. The umpires have to be developed by the countries, and then they're considered by the relevant committees to be appointed. And again, that's, it's a process that is beyond my control, so I try not to think about it. There's nothing I can do to affect it. In terms of umpire achievement, in some way, it's all relative, and what you believe is an achievement is personal. So I remember the first time I ever umpired a men's game, I thought that was an achievement, and I was proud of that. The first time I ever umpired an international game, that was an achievement, and I was really proud of that. So there are different levels of what you see as achievement. I think the trap that some people can fall into is comparing themselves with other people, and you should never do that. There are things that are within your control and things that are outside your control. You can control your fitness, you can control your composure, your preparation, you can control your performance on the pitch at any one time, but you have no control over anybody else. So in terms of achievement and goal setting, I have mixed views about whether that is something that is useful or not, because if you set goals that are beyond your control and you don't achieve them, what could you do about it? But if you set goals that are within your control and you achieve them, good. Beyond that, don't sweat the politics and don't sweat the other stuff. And if other people do well, be pleased for them and proud of them, and don't see that as a reflection on you, because it's not. I think the issue of developing existing umpires is difficult because you need to have people who are willing to volunteer, and getting people who are willing to volunteer. In Queensland it's great because usually of a weekend it's a nice day, you go and do your game, you're quite happy to stay for the next game and coach somebody because, well, why not? It's beautiful weather. But you imagine in Scotland where it's, -2 and it's snowing and you've done your game and you're freezing, and do you really want to stay behind to coach somebody else? So you need a whole host of dedicated volunteers to be able to do that. And to encourage people to volunteer, they've got to get something back from it. So how you recognise and reward those individuals is the biggest question, I think. If you're coaching an umpire, usually what you do is watch them on a game and then have a chat with them either at half-time or at the end of the game, depending on what your preference is. Some people don't like talking halfway through a game because it might put the umpire off, but you'll watch and observe and see if there are particular trends in the game and things that you might want to talk to the umpire about and say, okay, talk me through what you did and what your thought process was, and is there a different way that you could have done that? Or if there is something that they want to talk about, you have a chat through that. So it's about that self-reflexive process again, going, this is what happened, how could I have done that differently or better? What would have been a better outcome if I'd done something else? A lot of different countries have tried different things. I personally particularly like the Dutch approach, which is that when you're 18, everyone gets their level 1 badge, everyone umpires. So every player in the Netherlands at some point has umpired. I like that because it means that everybody gets a different perspective. Everybody understands what you're trying to achieve, either on the pitch or as an umpire or whatever. So the idea of having a broad base of people who understand the game from all sorts of perspectives is a good one. In terms of whether that would work in other countries, I don't know. I mean, we don't have the same kind of setup in either Australia or Wales or Scotland to be able to do that. I think that recognising the benefits of umpiring, both for the game but personally, is important. It's one of the things that I do at work. So I work at the University of Queensland, and one of the areas that I work with is about student leadership development, and I talk a lot about how umpiring helps develop leadership skills. And not just umpiring, I talk about engagement with sports in any way, but what you learn through umpiring you can apply to your careers, to your life generally, and it's that self-discipline, self-realisation, the self-reflection required to develop, the realisation that you make mistakes and you learn from them, all of that stuff. It's essential in leadership development, and it's essential for employability, which is kind of my job. That's what I do. So I think recognising the tangential benefits of umpiring, not just for the game but for the individual, would help more people get involved.
And what's been the highlights for you, Dino?
I think there are a couple of particular tournaments that were special. I mean, the first Commonwealth Games in New Delhi was special because I actually went with Irene, who I didn't expect us to ever go to a tournament together, and that was my first major tournament, so to go to the Commonwealth Games with your partner is kind of special.
Tell us about Irene.
Irene and I actually met in Edinburgh at the Great Britain Super League. Great Britain Super League is the tournament where they basically select the Great Britain players for the Olympics. So Irene was umpiring for Scotland, I was umpiring for Wales. We met up there and got on quite well. I was living in Cardiff at the time, Irene was in Glasgow. I eventually moved up to Glasgow. We got married in 2008. If you actually umpire internationally, very often you get to go to tournaments in all sorts of great places. I've been to some places that I would never even have dreamed of going, including Sumy in Ukraine, which is the easternmost city in Ukraine, just on the border with Russia. Was a very interesting experience. And you do get to go basically for free. They cover your costs and they cover your bed and board whilst you're there. The difficulty that both myself and Irene had is because we now live in Australia, and Irene umpired for Scotland, I umpire for Wales, we have to pay the difference in flight costs between travelling from Brisbane versus travelling from Cardiff, which can end up being quite expensive. And I think over the last 4 years, it's cost us about $15,000 to be able to take up the appointment. So, but that's our choice. That's what we agreed to commit to when we came to Australia. But I think that we're relatively unique in that situation. I know there are a couple of other umpires who have temporarily lived in other places and they've had to pay the difference as well. I did better at the second Commonwealth Games because I relaxed a bit more and I had a bit more confidence and was not so worried about trying to perform. I was more concerned about trying to help and make sure that the game in front of me was as good as it could be. So that was the difference. But also the European Championships in Belgium was just fabulous. I mean, Belgium as a country really did put on a great show, and they made sure that it was a great spectacle and a great event. And I got to umpire with Irene there as well, which was quite special. And it was Belgium-Ireland, and it was whoever won that went through to the semi-final. So it was a big game, and it was in front of a big crowd, and it was quite exciting. And I wasn't supposed to be umpiring at that tournament either. I was supposed to be going as the video umpire, and unfortunately we had a couple of injuries just literally a couple of days before the start of the tournament, so I got pulled on the pitch. So that was good and unexpected.
And who's been your greatest mentor?
I think in 2003 I umpired the under-18 European tournament in Rakovnik, and Edna Rutan was actually the umpire manager there. And I think that is the only time she's ever umpire managed. She's a tournament director now, and is doing incredibly well in that space. This was the only time she was umpire manager. And it was the first time that somebody actually said to me, do you know what, I think you might be all right at this. And it was the first time that I actually believed somebody. So that was 2003. 2004 I got my international badge and started taking umpiring seriously.
So you did the gold medal match at the last Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. Was much made of your connection to Australia? And take us through what happened the last few minutes.
Nobody made any comment about the appointment because, you know, when you get the appointments for the final day, you get all of the umpires round and they say, okay, you know, well done on a good tournament, and these are the appointments for the final day, and you know, there's usually people I'm usually congratulating other people because I've never done a final before. So I was quite surprised, but nobody actually mentioned the fact that I live in Australia or that I was actually born in England. And my parents are Scottish, but I umpire for Wales. So it's kind of confusing. And I was brought up in Hong Kong. So it's a little bit confusing, but nobody mentioned it at all. And from my point of view, all I was umpiring was whites versus yellows, because the England strip was white and the Australian strip was yellow, and that's how I remember who's playing where, white and yellow. So it didn't make any difference to me. I don't remember very much about the game itself. All I remember thinking when I walked on the pitch was don't do anything different, because what I had done during that tournament enabled me to get that appointment. So on the basis of how I had umpired, that was why I got that game. So I just kept thinking, don't do anything different, don't make it up, don't do anything fancy, just keep it simple, blow what you see, keep yourself safe. That was it, that was all I thought. And I had a bunch of friends back here in Brisbane watching. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, so they'd all gone round to the house to watch it live. And apparently when 2 minutes came up, I'm not sure I can swear on this, but when 2 minutes came up, Irene said, all Dino will be thinking now is don't f*** it up. And that's really, I remember seeing 2 minutes and going, right, everything now has to just be clean and tidy, nothing special, just keep your head. And then I gave a short corner, which was fine. And it was 26 seconds to go when England referred it. So I'd given the short corner. They took the short corner and broke early from the line and referred that. And so here's a thought as well. Technically, they couldn't actually appeal that decision, technically, because the outcome was going to be the same. It was going to be a retake of the short corner anyhow. There was no decision that they could appeal. But again, it's 26 seconds to go in the Commonwealth Games final. They have got a whole heap of emotions going on. I'm going to refer it, because that is what is the right thing to do. So I referred it, and Alicia in the box just said, no, you're right, carry on. So by the time they actually took the short corner, it was 24 seconds to go, and all I was thinking was, I'm not going to run the clock down for 24 seconds because that's too long, but they need to play it quickly. That was it. And then Australia scored. So that was interesting. That was 1-1. And then again, there's a kind of, I know stuff happened, and then there was strokes, and then the game finished.
So what's next for Dino?
I've got the World League finals in Argentina in December, which I'm looking forward to. It'll be a lot warmer than it is now, because it's freezing cold winter in Brisbane at 21 degrees, and I'm looking forward to summer. And I'm going to start doing some umpire coaching, because you know I'm 40 now. I've had a very, very good umpiring career, and I'm hoping that will continue. But I've also got to be realistic about my age and what I can do longer term. So I'm going to start looking into doing maybe some umpire managing and some coaching, and see how I go with that.
And that's it for Hockey Zone this week. See you next time.
Lift it over. So you can get away straight away. Eliminate players.
Start
You know where
with
to be.